Good morning, everybody. I'm going to be introducing a short video. A hero of mine, Dr. Sylvia Earle, really wanted to be with us at this conference, but she is required by, I think, some president to be somewhere halfway across the world saving our world's oceans. But I did have a chance to catch up with her for a brief Zoom chat here from the hotel 2 days ago. She was just back from Palau, I think, transitioning through Singapore on our way here, on our way back to California. But Sylvia is a National Geographic explorer and the leading voice for our oceans on this planet. She also happens to have been someone who had her formative years in Dunedin, Florida, on the Gulf Coast, and attended Clearwater High School, and has a real passion for what we're doing with the Florida Wildlife Corridor. So I'm going to share a short, just unedited, simple video chat we had so she can share some words with us. The reason for sharing this conversation here this morning is because Sylvia really leads with hope, and she sends a conservation message of hope that resonates with wide audiences around the world. And I think it's a good foundation for what we're starting to do here with Live Wildly. So with no further ado, I'll get out of the way and turn over the video for Sylvia Earle. Thank you.
There are plenty of reasons to be discouraged about the state of nature and our relationship to nature in the 21st century. But if you let that drag you down, then the outcome is inevitable and it won't be good. The good news, and it really is good news, about the 21st century is the magnitude of what we know that we not only did not, but could not know before right about now. We know that we can take action that can turn from decline to recovery. We have lost a lot, but in the ocean, half the coral reefs are still in pretty good shape. And about 10% of the sharks are still in the ocean. We can't restore the little monk seal that occurred in the Gulf of Mexico, in the Caribbean, and up the East Coast to some extent. The last one seen in 1952. They're gone. Don't let that happen to other species that are on the edge. About 1 million could be lost at least by the end of this century if we keep doing what we're now doing. But it doesn't have to be that way. We have a choice. Isn't that something to celebrate? Isn't that something to get you up out of your chair and do something? Whatever it is, everybody has power to do something. Some have more authority, more influence than others, but never doubt for a moment that each and every human, we're all different one from another. Each of us has something special to all of us. The question is, what are you going to do? Nobody can do it all, but everybody can do something. So it seems so obvious that everything counts, good or bad. The bad behavior counts, good behavior counts. So if we get enough people moving in the right direction, we can see the change from decline to recovery. It's happening in places where people are paying attention. So we just need more of it. There's a teenage girl in Texas who saw the trash piling up on the beaches. And what did she do? She started to pick it up and put it where it seemed it would do less harm. Nobody told her to do it. Nobody said this is something you must do. She just saw it needed to be done and she did it. And others saw this kid out there on the beach picking up trash, and one by one, people came out and started to help her. It turned into a movement. What was then the Center of Marine Conservation, now the Ocean Conservancy, picked up on it. I mean, it's everything good or bad starts by somebody doing something. The objective is clear, whatever that might be. Overall objective is to take action to protect what remains of the wild. intact ecosystems, land and sea, not allowing them to degrade further, to take those places that have been greatly altered and do what can be done individually, collectively, through an organization or through your own backyard to begin to transform negative into positive, turning a lawn into a wildflower garden, just your own backyard, or in your community, if you don't have a backyard, to encourage turning brown fields, vacant lots, city property that could be improved by planting native vegetation instead of ornamentals. It's a matter of being convinced yourself that this needs to be done. It can make a difference. Set a goal, set some timelines, get about it, and celebrate when you have success. Share the view, share your problems, share the solutions. It takes everybody doing something to get from where we are to a better place. And it is happening, but we need to speed up. The next 10 years, I'm not alone in saying that we are approaching tipping points, but we can get to turning points before those tipping points arrive. There's a little book called Last Child in the Woods that identifies one of the biggest problems we now face, and that is our detachment from nature. That owing to the urbanization of culture, civilization, the transformation of so much of the natural world into places that are really occupied by human structures, activities, and so on, it has just changed the dynamic from certainly when I was a child and during all preceding history. There was more of the natural world closer to where people live. We were more engaged than is the case today. So it takes a conscious effort, but once you do it, it's very addictive. I mean, getting out for whatever reasons, watching birds, identifying the plants in your neighborhood, just taking a child to some wild, wet place. No child left dry is my key advice for a good education. Get out to a place and start listening, not just to the kids, but listening to nature. Ask questions the way a child would. If your child, do that. That comes naturally to you. What is this? Why is this? Where did this come from? Why can't we do this or that or something else? It's just never stop asking questions about, okay, here's a problem. What can I do? That's a really good question to put to yourself. And there's so many ways that you can dive in, walk in, just take the plunge into the forest, into the stream, into your own backyard. How can you make the space over which you have some authority a better place? Try to think like a butterfly or a bird. But what would attract you to be closer to the people who now are in a place that once was entirely yours? You know, you can give back, make it a priority. And it seems like you might be given, but you get in return when you get out in some wild place. It's each of you has an opportunity to tell your story, your perspective. In the little town of Dunedin, they converted the old railroad track into a bike and hiking trail that goes right through a long area. I mean, it's not quite like the Florida Wildlife Corridor, but it's something where people who previously would not consider taking a long journey on a bike or just walking, and now it's It's like a bit like the Appalachian Trail. You have an incentive to go and and document what you see. Take your cameras, share your pictures, talk about the birds that you see, talk about the observations and the other people you encounter and share their stories too. This is a way to reconnect with with Florida, your home, and to encourage visitors to get to see and appreciate the natural beauty and wonders of what makes has over time and what still makes Florida this amazing, distinctive place that with just this cornucopia of wildlife still intact in some measure. There's still otters. There's still big snapping turtles. There's still alligators. There's still these beautiful birds that in some cases have declined, but in other cases are recovering because of our actions. More snowy egrets today than in the middle of the 20th century, but not as many as there were 500 years ago, but they're more than there were 50 years ago. It's a trend in the right direction. Let's get with it. Share your observations and your good news stories. Get others to focus on the positive and encourage them to tell their stories too. There's an opportunity building on the success of the Florida Wildlife Corridor to look at the coasts, Gulf Coast, East Coast, all the way down to the Florida Keys, to consider what can be done as individuals, as communities, as organizations, working with the government, whether it's national or local or state, community, whatever it takes. Think about identifying critical areas that if we can come together and protect them, just as critical areas on the land. Now, new strategies will have to be developed for the protection of areas in the coastal waters, but it's possible. Florida Keys, basically a national marine sanctuary. There are ways to strengthen the protection of all of the wildlife, not just the birds and not just the manatees, but to consider fish, consider the big pink conchs, consider Goliath grouper as wildlife, and embrace them with affection, with care, and do what you can do to really safeguard them wherever they are, all through the waters around Florida. Actually, it all does tie together. If the ocean is not protected, in the end, what we do on the land suffers as well. And it works both ways. Protecting the Florida Wildlife Corridor benefits the ocean. It's one system after all. It's one planet after all. Anything bad that happens any place affects all of it. In the same way, any positive actions anywhere have a beneficial effect in a more broad sense. So keep in mind, as you go about really enlarging and enforcing and strengthening the terrestrial Florida Wildlife Corridor, think about what might be done to increase its size and its strength, of course, but to take it out into the ocean. Think about what in the next 10 years could be done to have enhanced protection for all of Florida, land and sea. For those of you gathered to celebrate the Florida Wildlife Corridor, I say bravo, bravo. Great start, more to do. Model, something to inspire others to similarly look at the opportunity that now exists that is going to get harder and harder as time goes by. I've just returned from a visit to Singapore, where a few great old trees remain This is an island country, a city country. Singapore cities, Singapore as a country. There's a botanical garden that includes just a little bit of what remains of a natural rainforest, a tropical forest. Much of the rest is cultivated with care to make sure that the native vegetation is there, but it's a park, a garden, manicured in some ways. But the real treasure are the old trees. The real treasure is this small but really powerful patch of natural, amazingly protected forest that represents just a memory almost of what was not so long ago. Now, here's the point. It's really valuable real estate. I mean, every centimeter of Singapore, the country, Singapore, the city, is carved up one way or the other. There are lots of people who live in this small island country, but they chose to embrace at least a part of it as a treasure, and they will never carve that up for sale, even though somebody, if they could be convinced to sell it, would pay really big bucks. Think of Florida. We have a better opportunity in Florida than in most places, in spite of the fact that much of it has been carved up, paved over, cultivated, put into whatever, houses, farms, city land. But natural Florida still exists. If I had the authority, I would say, don't let any more be eroded away. Save what remains, because it's so precious. We can't put it back once it's gone. We can restore, to some extent, places that have been converted for human purposes. But it's a really big challenge, because a natural system includes everything from elements that may be thousands of years old, to those that may be hundreds of years old, to those that are constantly in motion, like the microbes and the fungi in the soil, the flow of water. This amazing fabric of life that once you've torn it, takes a long time to repair, and it will never be what it was. It may stitch back together again in some form, but the highest priority must be to save those places that are still in intact condition, and the species that are still the legacy from long before there were humans. There were alligators. Long before there were humans, there were snowy egrets and owls and the creatures that are special to Florida. Now we know things that we did not and could not understand in times past. There's no excuse anymore for continuing to create harm, now that we know the value for our health, for our security, for the economy, that all of it can be done by exactly what you are doing with the Florida Wildlife Corridor. This is a time as never before in terms of understanding, and maybe it's never again while there still is time. Keep at it. More needs to be done, and there is time. Just go for it.
Thank you for showing up this morning. We were so excited to launch the new Live Wildly campaign last night, and to see all of your smiling faces and to hear the multitude of excitement. I am feeling it, even though I have had no coffee yet this morning, so thank you for bearing with me. So I'm super excited to go into a little bit more depth today with you all, with a great group of panelists to talk a bit about the Live Wildly campaign, how we got here, its origin story, and how all of you can join the movement and bring along all the multitudes of supporters that are part of your current organizations and in your own networks to get involved. So I'm going to introduce our two panelists to the stage. First is Dan Sallick. Dan is the partner and co-founder of Subject Matter, a creative advocacy firm. Dan has worked in political campaigns and governments across his career, many here in Florida, and has a deep affinity and roots right here in the state. Dan and his team are my partners in crime in bringing this very special campaign to life. We've got a couple of our subject matter folks in the audience today too. So please welcome Dan. Our second guest, Arnie Bellini, is likely a very well-known face to some of you in the crowd. Arnie is the CEO of Bellini Better World Foundation. As Representative Renner mentioned yesterday, he is a passionate advocate for the Florida Wildlife Corridor and for the development and execution of green infrastructure plan for the state of Florida. So please welcome Arnie Bellini to our panel. Thank you. So before we start our chat, I should probably get out my clicker, because I think that will help us. So we are going to talk a little bit today about the Live Wildly campaign and about brand building for social impact. But before we get into our conversation, I'd like to go ahead and ask our lovely video team to roll our first 30-second commercial spot for the Live Wildly campaign.
Oh, yeah. If you love panthers, you love the Florida Wildlife Corridor. Love being in the water? Then you love the Florida Wildlife Corridor. Love the water being in you? The corridor. This, corridor. If you love ice fishing? Well, nah, it's more like it. This, that, this, all kinds of this, and whatever that is. If you love Florida, you love the Florida Wildlife Corridor. Join the movement to protect all of its 18 million acres at livewildly.com.
It always makes me happy.
It always makes me happy.
So one of the things, just to kick us off, thank you, that's so exciting. I love the energy of that commercial. And I will say all the folks in the commercial are Floridians, the talent. And each and every single one of them, when we had a chance to talk with them during the shoot, were so gracious and excited to be there. And very few of them knew about the Florida Wildlife Corridor. But when we talked with them about all of its riches and the bounty, they had all been there. And they were really excited to be part of the campaign and really honored, and they all were advocates kind of going right out of that experience. So to that point, the great thing about social movements is everybody gets to be part of them. And one of the things that I pulled from Sylvia Earle's chat was this notion of thinking about a bee or a butterfly and what would they want to feel and experience. And it made me chuckle at first, but then I thought, isn't that what we're all trying to do, is see ourselves in the thing we care about and see ourselves in the movement? And I think that is how we got to live wildly, right, Arnie? I would love if you could talk a little bit about the origin of kind of how we got here.
Well, if you want to go with your analogy, I'd say that the very first experience is getting out in the wild in Florida, right? I mean, I've always seen myself as a panther, right? Running through the forest, biking through the forest, swimming across rivers and streams. I mean, when you take that identity and then you really start to say, how do you keep this alive in Florida? How can other people experience the corridor like this? You start to realize that there's no other way that you can do this other than to start getting a community around you to save this. And I think Sylvia just made a great point. It takes all of us to do it. It takes all of us to do it. And we have such a great opportunity now to get things done. But the way that it happened for me, well, running through the forest, we actually live in Tampa Bay, at the north side of Tampa Bay, and I say about 10 years ago, we actually had a male panther in our backyard, hanging out for about 4 or 5 days. Now, my wife saw it, and she said, Arnie, I saw a panther. And I said, no, babe, you did not see a panther. There are only 20 in Florida. and there's none in Tampa Bay, okay? And she said, yeah, I hear you, but I'm pretty sure it was a panther. And so about the next year, I was in our backyard walking down a boardwalk to our lake, and there was the panther. And it was on its back like a kitten, batting at a butterfly on our boardwalk. And he's just like playing, and then stopped and looked at me as I walked up. And then to me, it was like, looked me straight in the eye, and that was it. It was like, from then on, I said, I have to save what is left of wild Florida. And so that's really probably one of my biggest inspirations was right there. But then the last thing was, we created a very successful high-tech company in Tampa Bay. We were very fortunate. We grew very fast. We were really good at marketing. And that's one of the things we like to bring to this conservation movement is good marketing. We were really good at marketing. And so one of the things that we figured out was that we didn't have to do anything other than start a high-tech business in Tampa Bay. Everything that we needed was right there. Plant your business, your tech business in Tampa Bay soil, and it will grow. And we wanted to prove that. And everyone said we could never do it. Everyone said, Arnie, you have to move your company to Silicon Valley. And I said, why? Then I have to live in California. I want to live in Florida, right? But I did have to go out to Silicon Valley on a regular basis. And so I met a lot of time at Google, a lot of time at Microsoft, a lot of time at all of these large organizations because we integrated to all of those products. And what I realized in Silicon Valley is no one really wants to live here anymore. And that was about 10 years ago I figured that out. And it just dawned on me that we really need to, if we wanted to really grow jobs in Florida, high-tech jobs are the best, cleanest jobs. And so once we sold our business, we decided that, we're going to give back to the Tampa Bay area. And so we committed 70,000 jobs to the Tampa Bay area and $70 million to do that. And we're actively doing that. We're really well on our path. Well, we've only got about 500 jobs so far. We got a long way to go, but we're getting things going. When we did the analysis, though, we said we're going to pave over half of Hillsborough County if we're successful. And then we said, well, we have to be completely holistic. We cannot be those capitalists, if you will, who say, hey, look, since nature's free and we don't have to pay for it, let's not, right? I mean, that's really the problem that we're dealing with today is no one's really paying for the full cost of nature, okay? So we said, let's be holistic. We're going to pave over half of Hillsborough County because we're going to create 70,000 jobs, 5 publics, 5 subdivisions, 3 schools, and we just did the math and we said, you have to compensate. And so that's how we really then said we need to put money into the corridor. And we really need to find a green infrastructure plan for the state of Florida. And when I went to Tallahassee, I figured out that there is no green infrastructure plan in the state of Florida. And it was really, really, really interesting experience. Wilton Simpson sat across the table from me the first time I met him. And I said, can I review the state's green infrastructure plan? And he said, he laughed. And he looked at me, he goes, we don't have a green infrastructure plan. That's for you to do. You, the citizens of Florida, are supposed to bring a green infrastructure plan to us to consider. And that changed everything for me. So I can keep talking. I'm going to stop now, but I mean, I'm just saying it's our responsibility to do this. And so that's when I really said we've got to really get going in action. We've really got to double down. We have to get the conservation movement started again in Florida. And we cannot wait. And I've also promised the legislators, and if you're here today, those that are here today, I'll promise you you're heroes because every government agency 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now is going to realize, oh my God, we are way behind in our conservation efforts and we have almost no chance for success. But in Florida, because we're starting now, we do have the chance and we will be successful. And it's going to be up to each one of us as citizens to co-create a green infrastructure plan for the state of Florida.
So where we came into the picture was very interesting because we got a call from the Florida Wildlife Corridor Foundation and Arnie, and the first conversation was, we want to develop a marketing campaign to sell the Florida Wildlife Corridor to the state of Florida. And usually those calls come in differently. It's, we want to have an initiative and we want to have, something that's less of a full-on marketing campaign that really is about appealing to consumers. And it was very open-ended, and essentially we had a blank slate to try and figure out how do we make that connection with people in Florida? How do we get them to see that this is something that is vitally important to them? And what was so interesting about it is that we went and did focus groups all over the state of Florida with all kinds of people. And the fascinating thing to me was they already love the corridor. They just don't know it exists. So everything people say they love about Florida and about its wild nature is already there. We just need to put the pieces together and connect the dots. And that's really where the idea of Live Wildly came out of. It was really about this idea of how do we speak to this ethos in Florida that everybody seems to understand and have their own slightly different definition of, and put it into a campaign that's really a big tent campaign that everybody can see themselves and Live Wildly. You could be a rancher and love the true wilderness of Florida and love this campaign. You could be somebody who lives in Miami who's just wild, but also wild, but loves the beaches, loves everything about the outdoors in Florida. And the time when I kind of knew this was going to work is I was with my family out in Dickinson State Park in Jupiter, and we had a great day. We were out on the water, we were walking around, and I took a picture. You can't take a bad picture there. And I sent it to Arnie and the team, and I just hashtagged it Live Wildly FL. And I was like, that just feels right. And I think that's really what we're trying to do, is get people to see everything they love about Florida through the eyes of their connection to the corridor. And I think we can really do that.
When we were doing the commercial shoot, Andy was there as well, and we were doing the spot where the fishermen, the husband and wife, are out on the pier. And all of a sudden, we saw this little bit of movement in the water, and this alligator just rolled on up. And it was, for me, I'm a city folk, and so to be able to see the alligator was like, oh, we're shooting a commercial, cool. I'm wild, I'm gonna show up. And the people that, we have met, throughout the interview process, the focus groups, it's just the sentiment of the people of Florida. I think you will see at the center of this campaign, and I think is the goal to be at the center of this campaign. The one piece of the spot that you saw, the local guy at the pool and the bear. There is this interconnectedness of, if you love these things, you love the corridor. And I think the whole goal really is for us to help people, as Dan said, whether you're sitting, you're in a club in Florida, down in Miami, or you're out on the coast somewhere, you can see yourself and you can make that connection, whether it's through the food you eat coming from the ag lands, or the 90% of drinking water for the state that comes from within the corridor. I think it's our job and the job of the campaign to help people see that the corridor is in everyone's daily life.
Yeah, so I think one of the great things is that, and I think this is true, and I texted it to Dan this morning at about 6 a.m., the corridor is, and this is true, this is a true statement, it's a very simple, true statement. The corridor is what makes Florida, Florida. The corridor is what makes Florida, Florida. If the corridor, and by the way, we all know, do we all know the definition of Florida? Land of flowers, right? Where do you see land of flowers in the center of the state with these broad, open 100-acre, 1,000-acre pastures of wildflowers? That's what the Spanish came and saw, and that's why they named this land Florida. And so the corridor is what really makes Florida, Florida. And if you poison the corridor, you poison the beaches, you poison the rivers, you poison everything, and you destroy the entire ecosystem of Florida. So we base our largest, and so you got to do it from an economic standpoint. When we went to Tallahassee, the first thing I said to all the legislators is, I am not a tree hugger. I do hug trees, but I do other things too. I'm a Republican, and I'm green, and I want to spend money to try to get a conservation movement started in Florida. And they looked at me and they said, okay, well then, we need real data. We need real science. We need real balance of economy and ecology. And that's really the game that we're playing, is how do you balance economy and ecology, right? I think our governor did an amazing thing when he hit the go button on our gray infrastructure, right? COVID hit, and Governor DeSantis was smart enough to say, well, I'm going to create jobs, and I'm going to get all of these construction projects, all of these roads that we had backlogged, we're going to say, do them now. Smartest thing the governor could have done. Brilliant move. But with that, it gave us the opportunity to say, hey, folks up in Tallahassee, you hit the button on gray infrastructure. Awesome, we need it. Now we need to hit the button on green infrastructure. And so let's get serious about some form of a green infrastructure plan in the state of Florida. And the corridor is the core of a green infrastructure plan. Why? Because if you lose the corridor, you have no chance of a green infrastructure plan. But this doesn't just last with the corridors. The corridor, if we can't save the corridor, there's no use in going any further. But if we can save the corridor, we have to go further. We have to go into the urban areas where the pollution is coming into the corridor, and we have to work with them as well. And so I just want to say that Live Wildly is committed to the entire process, and we want to actually make a difference in the corridor, first and foremost, and if we have success there, start to see if we can actually creep out and help with all of you co-create a green infrastructure plan for Florida.
Well, and I think if you think about what Live Wildly is designed to do, really the journey that we hope to take people on is number one, I think we've got to start with this idea of awareness, which is we know we have unconscious support, but people don't know the Florida Wildlife Corridor. So this campaign is going to help create that awareness. The second thing we've got to do is we've got to provide that education. So once you know the corridor exists, then it's about saying to people, okay, what's in it for you? It's food, it's recreation, it's economy, it's all the benefits of the corridor that we know. The next thing we've got to do is we've got to cultivate an army of supporters. And we've talked a lot about this in the campaign. We want to get an army of 500,000, 1 million or more Floridians who really align with the idea of live wildly in the Florida Wildlife Corridor. And then why do we want to do that? We want them to act. So we will want them to support ballot initiatives like the one coming up in Polk County. We will want them to thank legislators for standing up for the corridor and for conservation in Florida. We want to ask them for money. We want them to put a sticker on the back of their car. And I think, part of this is to go through this entire journey. And there's one campaign that always stuck out to us when this started, which is, I don't think a lot of people realize now, but in 1986, the state of Texas created a campaign called Don't Mess with Texas. And everybody now just knows Don't Mess with Texas as basically the state ethos of Texas. But it really started as an anti-litter campaign because they had a massive litter problem along the highways in Texas where people would literally think nothing of throwing their beer cans out of their trucks. And it was all about mostly younger men. And that campaign, and first of all, it completely solved the vast majority of the litter problem in the state that was costing them millions of dollars to clean up. But then it really tapped into something totally different, which is it was about the essence of who Texans were. And I think what I'm hoping will happen with Live Wildly that definitely happened is that Don't Mess with Texas works equally as well with sort of progressive, the admitted weirdos of Austin as it does with country Republicans. And I think that's what we're hoping Live Wildly can do, is that it's not about left or right. Everything in this country now is about, divisive politics, and everybody's got to pick a side. You don't have to pick a side with Live Wildly. There's room for everybody. And I think, one of the things that's amazing, in Washington, we say to people, well, the Florida legislature voted unanimously to designate the Florida Wildlife Corridor, and Ron DeSantis signed it, and everybody in Washington is like, that makes no sense, that can't be true. But the reality is, outside of the political world that seems to be eating at the country, there's a much more positive thing that can happen. And I think we're trying to tap into the positivity of being a part of something rather than picking a slice and going after that slice. And I think that's really what Live Wildly can be in Florida. And then hopefully if this can really become a template and a sort of an inspiration for other people in other states to do the same kind of thing.
You know, I'll also add this, which is interesting. I've reviewed the state's marketing plan.
Oh.
They don't have one. So now you've reviewed it?
That's the shortest one I've ever seen.
And so that's an opportunity, right? And so what Dan and I talked about is like, well, that's fine. We'll do it for them. And so we really think that, well, one of the things that I challenged Dan to do is I said, listen, I am so irritated with all the press making fun of Florida, with Florida man does this, Florida woman does this. It's always this, we're cast as this outrageous group of people that do outrageous things. And I thought, yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. That's Florida. Let's own that. And so one of the things that we're going to do on Live Wildly, we're going to start offering challenges that get you into the corridor. And we're not exactly sure how we're going to do it. You're going to help us figure this out. But imagine doing 3 events that we ask you to do, and then you automatically get a medal and a designation as a Florida man or a Florida woman, okay? Right? Because, in other words, we're going to own it, all right? We're going to own Florida man. We're going to own Florida woman. But so, in other words, if you want to live wildly, that is how you become a Florida man or a Florida woman, okay? So that's one of the ethos that we're bringing to this website as well. You'll see that happening in time. And we're actually starting the very first Live Wildly excursion is going to happen next week. Adam Bass and I are going to sample it. We're going to actually take a mud boat up Reedy Creek. Where are you? Mud boat up. And a chainsaw, right, Adam? Just so we can cut all the logs along the way. But these are going to be like, you can only do these things in Florida. These are only things that you can do in Florida. And so we're going to put a host of challenges. So the idea is make this thing fun. Use it as a marketing campaign for the state of Florida. And I think that's a real opportunity. So if you think about the fact that nobody is owning Florida Man, nobody is owning advertising for Florida, the marketing concept of Florida, the state of Florida, is still the same as what it was in 1928, which is a great place to vacation and retire. It's like, no. Yes. Well, yes. True. And live wildly.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I think it's really important for this group as well is that we purposely designed this campaign to be adaptable. And I think part of the co-ownership of the campaign is that other organizations in Florida can, that are a part of this effort, you in this room, can say, oh, I love this. Can I put my logo on this? What if we said it this way? We want this to be a campaign that can morph and change. Particularly most of these campaigns now are fundamentally digital. Television still has an important role, radio, but a lot of times this is how the vast majority of Floridians are going to identify with this campaign. And I think as you have ideas about how to turn this into something that works for you, for your organization, we've got the ability to adapt and customize the campaign so that it's not just, I'm a big believer that the way to make a campaign really successful is to just let it run free and open it up and change it and adapt it and make it bigger and bigger. And I think this campaign and the idea of Live Wildly can work for a lot of people running alongside things you're already doing. So I think that's something that we hope will be something you can come to us with and say, hey, what if we did this? Even if you're a principal at a school and you said, I love this, what if we did this for the kids? Like, let's do it, and let's not keep it so tightly wound that it doesn't really reach its full potential.
Yeah, and if you have ideas, this is co-created, so it's like we don't have all the ideas. We need your best ideas. We may have triggered something where you're like, oh, I love that concept that you did with the commercial. You could do this with that. If you have ideas like that, please, this is co-created. We crowdsource these things. Mm-hmm. What's your email?
Well, I'm just flipping
Jen
right now.
at livewildly.com.
Partnerships at livewildly.com.
Oh, well, there you go. So is that where we want
that's
suggestions?
That's where we would
Okay.
yes,
All
suggestions. Right. So here, just to add on here, I think, again, reiterating that the whole notion of the rising tide lifts all boats, right? And that we're hoping that the campaign can be that component. I've heard from I've heard a theme all through the week, which is too much to do, not enough resource. Too many audiences, and we can't reach them all. And I think the one kind of intersection of that Venn diagram, right, is this consumer audience. It's people whose hearts and minds that you want to capture. I sat through the whole entire storytelling session yesterday. They were amazing. But it's still a gap, I think, for every cause organization. I worked with the Nature Conservancy for the last 15 years. Big organization, and we were still struggling with getting that center of the Venn diagram. And I think Live Wildly's purpose is to be the heart and mind connector for consumers across the state of Florida, and then eventually, hopefully, other places outside of the state when we win big here. But the purpose is we can help fill that gap of how you reach these consumer audiences with the things that you care about. And we want to use Live Wildly as a vehicle to do that. And so to Dan's point, I'm going to be kind of bringing together a collective of organizations who want to get on board fast. We've already got founding partners in Archbold Florida Wildlife Corridor Foundation, Florida Wild, the Path of the Panther. Like, we've got our whole group of folks who have raised their hands and who've really been helping to propel this campaign. They have laid amazing groundwork, and we are just taking that and amplifying it. But we want to pull in content and really good stories from all of you and elevate them through different ways in this platform. And we want you to be able to do the same. And so the co-creation is real. Reach us at partnerships@livewildly.com. After we bring many of you on board, the next task is to start working with corporate brands. How do we then use those channels and those voices to help be a megaphone for the Live Wildly brand and the sentiment of what's happening here in Florida?
And one thing I think is really important that we've talked about right from the beginning is I think in a state as diverse as Florida, it's absolutely critical that we think as broadly as we can about reaching audiences. So, there's going to be a website in Spanish for Live Wildly. There's going to be creative in Spanish. The goal here is to try and use the power of targeting that digital media allows for to make sure that we don't just go to the same audiences that traditional conservation campaigns have gone to, and that we reach well beyond that, so people can see themselves in the same way that we all do connected to the corridor.
Yeah, and it actually gets even better, because if we're successful to doing that, getting corporate sponsorship and starting to get dollars coming to Live Wildly, those dollars don't stay with us. Those dollars go out to you, okay? So what we're really trying to do is we're trying to be a marketing campaign that draws lots of money in and pushes that money out to all of you who are doing the good work to get this job done. That's really that's one of our education, plus the ability to start to raise private funds, because what we're being told by the legislature is we need to see matching. And so we need to get very aggressive, and that's really what Live Wildly is attempting to do, is to say, look, see, we've got matching. Now we need all of you to also do your very best efforts to raise funds in your own organizations, but we're also here trying to do the same for you. We haven't figured out how to award the money yet because we don't have any money yet. Okay? We're going to figure out how to get the money coming in, and then we're going to figure out how to have you apply for it and award it out. But if we are successful, that means you are successful. And if you would help us, then we will help you. And if you will give us content, we will give you success. That's a promise.
Yep. Well, that was one of my questions. What does success look like? You say we will give you success. How are we know we're winning?
We'll know we're winning when there are many reports on how the state of Florida is advanced in its thinking on preservation, and that is already starting to happen. So I think that we're already successful. I'd say we've already done way beyond any other state. We have a designated geographic area of 18 million acres, okay? And we did that in last year. That's insane. No one could have done that. I don't even know how it happened, quite honestly. I got to believe it's, serendipity, okay? Something's afloat, if you will, right? But the point is that we can do it and we will do it, and we need everybody. And it's not just, look, it's not about coming and saying, that was a great conference, and we love Casey and the Sunshine Band, and we're coming back next year. Thank you, we want you back next year. But we need you working your butts off all year round. So we've got to actually get this whole group coordinated. We're now all working on the same mission. We're all connected together, trying to connect the corridor. And what does success look like? It's when we've co-created a green infrastructure plan. We need to have greater and greater success, but we already have had success. This conference is a success. The fact that you showed up is a success. The fact that you're still sitting here is a success. The fact that you're not all on your phones, you're actually listening is a success. Those are all big successes. The fact that we've got a conservation movement started again in Florida is a success. The fact that we got $400 million last year for conservation, when in previous years, maybe the previous 10 years, we got $400 million. If we were lucky, and $435 million this year, okay? So we are on a roll. We just have to stay on a roll. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. That's the definition of inertia. We have inertia. We need to keep it.
Yeah, and I would think from a purely tactical standpoint too, we've got to build the Army.
Yep.
Every day, that's our mission now, is every day we're building the Army. More people involved, more people connected to us, more emails, more people following us on social media, more partners, so that we can push out this message and we can activate people when they need to be activated.
And we'll get our way, because we're using science, we're using data, we're putting logic in front of legislators, we're putting business logic, we're showing them how they can balance economy and ecology, and they all want to do it, they just don't know how to do it. The state doesn't have $1 million to pay McKinsey to do a report, okay? But they love having the report, right? I mean, it's not something they would proactively do. It's just they got $1 million other things to do, right? So they need us, the citizens, to do it. So what's great about it is they react when you give them the right information. And they will continue to react. And they've told us, we love this. You saw Rick Renner yesterday. Do you think that Rick Renner is going to let this die? I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen. We have legislators in the room right here, right now, okay? Every one of them has fallen in love with this movement. This isn't going to die. Keep the inertia going.
Yep. So you will get to meet one of our esteemed colleagues, Danny. She is helping us, just from the room, create the movement. She has got a really awesome QR code that you can click and scan quickly and join and follow on social. We've got we've got hashtag LiveWildlyFL. We're on all of Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at LiveWildlyFL also. So please get on and follow so you can be the earliest adopters of the movement. What we're going to do now is actually kick over into just some questions that I would love for you all to kind of think a moment on, chat with a neighbor about. It's all about seeing yourselves and your organizations in Live Wildly. We really want to use the next bit of time until the end of our session to get some feedback and to answer questions. So we thought some of these questions might help get your brain cells moving a little bit around how your organizations could benefit. What would prevent your organization from participating? What do you like best about the campaign? What might you change? And if you had one story, character, or piece of work from your organization that you want the whole world to know about, start thinking about what would it be. We want to build a long-term content and storytelling bank where we are scheduling out to incorporate partners and to be on similar schedules with you all so that we can be pushing out content that's new and innovative at a regular cadence. So I'm going to give us a little break and let you all kind of chat with a neighbor and think through some of these questions. And we'll come back here in like 10-ish minutes.
What's the question again? Make sure they know their homework
They're up
assignment.
on the, they're all
okay.
up on the,
There you go.
yeah, they're all up on the screens. So just, I would like you to just think about any of these that speak to you and have a little chat with a neighbor, and then we'll come back in about 10 minutes or so. And I would love to just get some feedback from the group, and then we can answer some questions. Awesome, awesome.
Right.
Thanks, everyone. Hi, everyone. There was so much energy in this room. That's so awesome, especially on the last day. So we should all, let's give all of you a round of applause because this was awesome. Awesome, awesome. So we have two friends in the audience who are going to be circulating around with a handheld mic. So we would love to hear your initial thoughts, answers to some of the questions, immediate reactions. We have a hand in the front with Meredith and over here.
So thank you, all of you. I have so many ideas, and I look so forward to communicating with you more. But one thing I wanted to bring up is something that is not something that's existing and not here. So I've never been to Palau, but when you arrive in Palau, you have to sign a piece of paper, and it's called the Palau Pledge. And it basically states in a more eloquent fashion than I will say that Palau is beautiful, and I am going to leave it in a better state than when I arrived, or I'm going to leave no trace. And I think that there could be a lot of opportunity with this sort of campaign and momentum to bring that to Florida. When you arrive at one of our international airports or at rest stops along our interstates, maybe it's not a physical piece of paper, maybe it's a QR code that you can access and brings to the sites. Something that's co-branded can involve different agencies, state agencies, federal agencies that work here, different NGOs that are all part of this movement. That sends that message, and I think that that could be really something that could be really well received, and the Florida Wildlife Federation would love the opportunity to explore that with you in more depth.
Awesome, thank you. Such a great idea.
Yeah, we love that idea. That's a great idea.
Let's go left, and then we'll come back right, if that's okay.
Hi, I'm Diane from naturecoaster.com. The thing that I wanted to bring up is that I don't see anybody here from tourism. And I think they would be great partners in this campaign. From Visit Florida down to each county's tourism development director. If there's any way I can help with that, I'm happy to.
Awesome.
But I really think tourism should be a part of next year.
We totally agree with
Yep.
that. There's no doubt that we want to. This is the launch. This is
Yep.
like, so we're saying, great, connect us.
Yes.
You know, all y'all, if you say, hey, you should be talking to so-and-so or working, connect us. Just connect us, right? That's what this is all about, is connections. And you guys are the network that's going to connect us to every.
We're here, over here, to the
Another
right.
connection over here.
Yay! I will come see you right after.
I'm here representing the state parks.
Can we get a mic to her, please?
Oh, yes. Oh, we have her.
I'm here representing the Florida State Parks Foundation as the president of the board, but I also am executive of Universal Parks and Resorts and former president of the Visit Florida. So I know that Julia talked to you. There's definitely some opportunities with Visit Florida for marketing and partnership, but there's also opportunities with tourism, as you mentioned, and definitely with some of the big hitters in Orlando.
Yeah, and that was
Wonderful.
one of the very first things that came up when we started exploring this, was that it felt like in selling the idea of Live Wildly, we were selling all the incentive to visit Florida, to live in Florida, to protect Florida, all in one. So I feel like there's such a natural connectivity there. It'd be great to explore that further. It's
Yep.
a great suggestion.
Andy.
Hi there, I'm Josh Daskin, Director of Conservation at Archibald Biological Station, and had a great conversation with my neighbor here, Alex, during the break, and wanted to ask what the vision is for how Live Wildly might interact with some sort of the small business for-profit side, if that's in the vision yet.
Yeah, so great question. What we want to, well, if I gave you the highest level, what's the picture? You know what I'm going to do, Josh. What's the picture on the outside of this 1,000-piece puzzle, right? What's the picture that we're going to create? That's one of the 1,000 pieces. I think that the answer on that is what we want to do is we want to, if I had to give you the picture, it'd be like we want to be the Google of all cool things to do in Florida. So like if you go to that site, you'll find all kinds of cool things to do. We'd be connected to every ecotourism site, right, that you could imagine. That would be a really cool outcome for Live Wildly, is to actually be that connector to all cool things in Florida, all parks in Florida, all ways of visiting and tourism in Florida. It'd be great if it were that sort of hub connector. And the other thing to think about is Live Wildly. We're spending millions of dollars, to be clear. You would know exactly how much. You sent me the bills. But the point...
That go to Facebook and Instagram and everybody else.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
He's just a pass-through.
Yeah, we're just a pass-through.
Don't keep any of it, do you, Dan? But the point is that use us as your marketing engine. Nobody, I mean, here's the thing that I figured out in the technology industry. We bought up a lot of small software companies because they couldn't market themselves. So we bought the companies, we did great marketing for them, we helped them become better software companies, and they were wildly successful under our umbrella. And we're really talking about doing the same thing here. We're saying, let's all come together, let us help make you better. All the NGOs that we work with, we give them consultative advice on how to raise funds better. We give them consultative advice on how to run their businesses better. So it's not just about giving you money, and actually we won't give you money until we understand that you're running your business appropriately and streamlined, which is a huge benefit to you. But then you should think of us as your marketing department. Think of that website as your website, right? Because if we all use that as a collective way of focusing on things in Florida, think about all the hits that we get there. Think if we could become the Google of all things in Florida that are fun and cool to do. Think about how many more hits your website would get. Think about, if you're an ecotourism person, think about how many more tours you're going to get as a result of it, right? So it's really, and here's the thing, what we figured out in Florida is you are all already doing the job. You just have to do it together. So we're trying to provide for you this big umbrella, this big tent that everybody can get underneath, right? The Florida Wildlife Corridor Foundation, pursuing the corridor, trying to make this thing a green infrastructure plan, and then using Live Wildly as your marketing tool to get that done. Think of it that way. And in that way, we're saying we will spend the money to get the message out for you.
Well, and I think when you think about or at least when I think about the future state of Live Wildly and how it can evolve, essentially by growing an army and by exposing that army of supporters to the ethos of Live Wildly and to the partners and people that make it up, you create this sense of affinity. And in sort of a future dream state, you want to be walking down Main Street in your community and see a little Live Wildly sticker in a business's window, and it's like, okay, like we're all together. This we think alike. So I think there is this idea of creating an affinity and a shared value that we all see together that I think will make this really successful. And again, it's not just about the Florida Wildlife Corridor, but that's ultimately the objective. It's about this larger, shared feeling that we all have if we love the state of Florida, which I think that's kind of the bigger idea that will hopefully get the more structural idea to happen.
And to your question a little bit more, Josh, it's that, I think with anything, whether it's, a new science discovery or a new land deal or a paper, you have to think really strategically about like who's the audience you want to move, because at the end of the day, we all have the finite time and skills and resources, and this again is moving the consumer audience, moving the audience that generally is kind of the last in the line that our organizations are able to service on their own, right? You're worrying about high net worth donors and policymakers and influencers and state house folks, and like the consumer component is important, but there's a different way at which you raise awareness with a consumer going to the grocery store or taking their kid on a walk through a park, and a way that you engage them and a way that you activate them that's very different, right, from all those other audiences. And so that's the goal here of doing that. And I think, as Dan said, phase one, like launch last night, we are all about awareness. Like, we just need people to know that we are here, right? That Live Wildly is a thing, and it's real, and it's happening, and when you go to the website, it works, and when you follow us on social, you get interesting, pithy things to do. And once we start building that momentum, then we start creating that engagement, right? And we're giving you things to do, and we're talking to companies, and we're talking to other stakeholders, and we're saying, here's what you can do to make a difference. And then that activation piece, which comes at the third kind of phase of this, is that maybe we have a concert series in the corridor.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we do an awesome Ironman.
Okay.
I've worked with Rivian for the last several years. I want them to do an off-road excursion the whole way through the
Yes.
corridor. Like, we did one on the Transatlantic Trail. Why can't we do one here? And so there's all these ideas of like, but we got to grow it, right? The same way you identified a species, cool, no one knows about it. Like, we have to tell them about it, and then we have to like teach them about it. So we're on a journey, but we're going to try to jumpstart the journey at a tech company pace, right? And so, but bringing you all along, you know, you can just hop on board and like ride the fast car. So other hands, I saw
There's one
maybe
here.
some. Here we go. You've been waiting so patiently. Thank you.
Katrina Shaddix. I'm the Executive Director of Bear Warriors United, and we work to protect wildlife and their habitat. But I'm also the president of Sustainability Leaders Initiative, and that's a nonprofit org that I started in Seminole County because we have such a problem with developers destroying wildlife habitat. That's our biggest pain, and everyone you talk to in Seminole County, you know, will go to work one morning, they come home, and that forest that was across the street is in a pile of burning mulch. So it is top priority in Seminole County to stop this and to preserve what's left of our green spaces. Our motto is Florida's natural choice. Mm-hmm. And that's so not accurate right now. I call it the developer's choice. And it's the third smallest county in the state, but it's also the third most densely populated. We do have some wonderful green spaces left. I want to get part of it into the corridor, but my point is that a lot of these battles, and it seems like the most threats to the corridor come at the county level. It's the city and county commissioners that are making the decisions to change zoning and upzone. And I was wondering, one of the questions was, what could Live Wildly do for my organization? But I'm hoping that I can do something for Live Wildly by going to, and I did this for the bear hunt. I went county to county and got resolutions passed to oppose the bear hunt. And if I could go county to county and get a green infrastructure plan put into place at all the county levels, like maybe modifying the land development code and get a green infrastructure plan. Usually when one county does it, other counties follow through. It's just getting that first one. So my ask of Live Wildly would be if you could send a representative with me to these county commission meetings and get this through, we could, you know, create a playbook relatively easy. We have an amazing environmental attorney right here that does all of our legal stuff for free, and she is totally on board with redoing land development codes. And you know, it came to the point when I would call her every day, she goes, Katrina, who do you want to sue today? I am only one person. But anyway, she's 100% on board for protecting what we have left. We love this program. Never been to a more classy, well-organized summit in my life. So I thank y'all profusely, and we want to help y'all get this through.
Thank you.
Well, I do, since you said thank you for the conference, I do really need to give a shout out to Lisa Shipley. Where are you, Lisa?
Yes, Lisa. Yay!
Lisa, I mean, at ConnectWise, my company, we actually have conferences in this very same hotel. We are up to 3,600 people. That's what you guys will be in 2-3 years, maybe. It will grow quite a bit. But we have a staff of about 20 people that put that on, and I had assumed that we would need a staff of about 5 to do it. Well, basically, Lisa has just almost taken the thing on her back and made it happen, and amazing results. So thank you very much, Lisa. Also, big shout out to Deborah Pollard. Where's Deborah? Deborah.
Hey, Deborah.
If you had fun last night, you thank Deborah, okay? Deborah put on the entire thing last night. It was amazing. Thank you very much. House of Blues, KC, who'd have thought?
Who's the band going to be next year? That's what I want to know.
Well, the first
Oh, we
year,
should crowdsource it.
we'll crowdsource it, yeah. So, I mean, it's like, that was easy for me because KC was my favorite band when I was in high school. So, and they're from Florida, so that was an easy one. We'll have to, you guys will pick it next year, though. So, my first question is he still alive?
He did post for Live Wildly last night, so please follow.
Nice.
Please follow
Go
KC.
All right. So no, but in order to create a movement, you have to educate people, you have to feed them, and you have to entertain them. And when you do all three, you actually can create a movement because we actually, well, I saw it last night. We had you guys all moving together on the dance floor in unison. That's for darn sure. So that's really the idea of this whole movement as well. So you mentioned the county by county effort. Yes, great idea. We're doing that. So what came from this conference was, wow, we need to go county by county. And Seminole and Volusia, yeah, for sure. We want to get to, we'd love to get to all the counties. We're going to start with the ones that are in the corridor first. We've asked Mackenzie to do a county by county breakdown of the Mackenzie data for them. We've asked Steve, the Australian that has the real-time geo data. We've asked him to give us the overlays county by county, as well as we've gone to Archbold and said, hey, you've got 2 other models that confirm Steve's model. Let's give them all 3 county by county. And so what we've done is we've actually started to create amongst these NGOs. We've started to create, Archbold and others. We've started to create the ability for services and data that we can then leverage and help you county by county, and also help you land trust by land trust in your region. And so the idea is, how do we provide the services to help you get your jobs done quicker, better, faster, stronger? If you guys remember the old PF Flyer commercials, who's old enough to remember those? No one? Okay, never mind. But that's the idea. How can we get you working quicker, better, faster, stronger? And then, yeah, we want to then, with us, the strategy is then we'll have this killer, education program to bring to the counties. And every county commission has to give us 5 minutes. So it's a 5-minute presentation. We'll bring people like you that are already known in the, or maybe not. How well are you received in your own county?
Very well.
For this and for conservation.
Okay, good. So the idea would be to bring people like Betty. We're going to bring Betty with us to one county, right? I mean, we'll bring you to your county, right? So the idea is find the person to bring to the county as the mouthpiece, but then hand them the information and show up with them. And so, yeah, because here's the deal. Counties are really where the rubber meets the road. Counties are the ones that have the land use maps. Counties have no idea and have no layer on that blueprint for their land use map. They have no layer for the corridor. So what we're going to do is say, look, here's the corridor. It runs through your county. Can we, and here's the data, and here's Mackenzie, okay? And so can we help you maybe add this layer to your land use plan? And oh, by the way, we have grants for that. So you don't need to, so don't tell us you don't have the money for it, because you do now, right? So we'll offer the services, we'll offer the grant, and we'll offer to then tell them how this layer of their land use plan might be in conflict with the rest of the land use plan. And in doing that, we're hoping to influence the way that they see the land use plan. But importantly enough, we're trying to say, look, if you take this overlay of the corridor in your county, and you the next county over, and you the next county over, we'll actually have a corridor, because if you don't recognize it, we'll never have a corridor. And I am not against development. I want to be real clear about, I am a Class A developer in the state of Florida, just so you know. I could concrete over the entire state, right? I mean, I have a license that lets me do that, right? So I'm not against development. I'm against appropriate development. I'm absolutely for responsible development. I'm absolutely for maybe more density and more green space, you know, maybe go a little bit more vertical, right? And so I think that we can very easily convince counties to do that. I think they all want to do that. The other thing that we're going to do, by the way, is county by county, make sure that we're the counterbalance for the developers. What happens in every county? Developers somehow successfully convince county commissioners that they're going to make a lot more money in their county, and their county is going to be way more economically viable if they allow these developments. What they don't do is they don't actually figure the entire cost of development. And so one thing we have to help them understand is, what is the total cost of development? We have to help the developers understand the total cost of development, right? And then you have to figure out who's paying for that total cost of development, because a lot of times the counties are left with paying that bill. And it's not the county paying the bill, they just have to raise the tax bill. It's the taxpayers in the county that end up paying to destroy their forest, to overbuild, to overpave, and to have no plan for doing any of that. So that's all got to change, county by county, and that's what we got from this conference very clearly from all of you, is we need to do that county by county.
So we have time for one more question, and there is a lovely lady over here in blue who has literally had her hand up, I feel like, for 10 minutes. But someone here already has a microphone. Please go ahead, please go, and then we'll come to you, and then we'll wrap.
Doug Hadaway, the Trust for Public Land. I want to just say that I believe you're filling a gap or enhancing the movement to another level through the media campaign that you're talking about. I sometimes half joke with my colleagues that, you know, with the development pressure, the population growth, and even the ecological pressures we're having, which is a global pressure about how species is spreading around the world, we're headed in Florida to a place where the leftover lands that are native, as we know it, Florida, are going to be surrounded by a fence, and we can say this is what Florida used to look like, and we're headed that way. The wildlands, or the wildlife corridor, is generally in a more rural, you know, undeveloped environment. So my point is that as part of your campaign, I would underscore 2 points. One you hit in your ad that you showed us, and that is diversity. I think that we're talking about all Floridians, and I think access to these places both is defined in 2 ways. One, physical access, so bringing these places to where people live as opposed to being in the hinterlands. Now, mind you, as Florida develops, these places that are protected will be eventually surrounded, so ultimately they'll have access, hopefully that way. But to where we are now, we need to have those physical access points, but we also have to make sure that these places are advertised as welcoming to all Floridians. Yep. So the faces and the people you see on these images must be diverse to reach all of Floridians. And so that's my point. I wanted to say thank you for taking on the mission, the movement, the messaging out to the public, because I think that is critical to maintain its long-term longevity.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And then we'll wrap just over here, and then...
I know this lady has had her hand up.
I know, for a very long time, so we don't...
Didn't even switch
right
arms.
There, blue. Yes, you.
Okay, I think we both had one, so I'm going to ask really, really fast, and then I'm going to let her make her comment.
Okay,
really,
that's
really
fair.
Fast. Okay, Rachel Smith from Disney. I just wanted to say thank you for this. It's an incredible and innovative initiative, and I appreciate every single aspect of it.
You're from Disney. You can take as much time as you want.
I guess I had a question about action messaging. I know some of the trickiest parts of these campaigns that are targeted towards the general public as a recipient of the campaigns. It's really, really difficult to come up with some of those, like 1 or 2 high level, what is it that we want the general public to do as a function of, you know, building awareness from this campaign effort. So I guess I wondered if you had any initial thoughts about what those really simple and high level actions are that we want people to take as a result of consuming the content from this campaign, and if this group has an opportunity to weigh in on what those actions are. So that's my question. And
Thank you.
Before we move to the next question, it's a great question, and I think our approach, in a way, is that politically, the corridor is not in crisis at the moment. There's political support, there's success. So I think our feeling is that in the first phase of this, which is the first 4 to 6 months, it's about building the awareness. It's about making the connection. So it's emails, follow us on social, let's start to become a part of your daily social media diet. Then we'll start to say, hey, do you realize that there are things to do in the corridor in your area and in Florida generally that you can enjoy? So start to get that physical connection so that by the time we get to a political fight, and hopefully a fight that we can be proactive about, so it's not a fight, it's really about pushing forward, we've got this significant list of people who we're talking to on a regular basis, and we're interacting with them in much more of a human way about all these shared values. Before, usually the most of these political initiatives, whether it's conservation, climate, healthcare, pick the topic, you skip all the romance and the getting to know each other and the dating and get right into the knife fight. Yeah. And I think here
it's the same with giving. Yeah. I mean, most organizations don't have the funding and capacity to do an appropriate journey, right? It's not like, hi, nice to meet you, let's get married. We don't, and so we're taking the appropriate steps to give people a journey, to Dan's point, to be part of the family, to feel close and connected.
Yeah. So, but I do think it'd be great to hear from this group about the kinds of actions you think would be most useful, most engaging, most helpful. But it is a take it slow and let's really get to know each other kind of strategy that I think will build more durable relationships over time.
You had another question, I think you said.
Hi, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conference. I'm Erica Hernandez with the Alachua Conservation Trust. And all of the trusts in Florida, we are part of the Alliance of Florida Land Trusts, which is a really great organization because we work together. We collaborate a lot. We are the boots on the ground working with the local communities. And one thing that we're really good at is leveraging a lot of different resources, be that financial, be that expertise, getting enough people to the table so that we can get to the yes answer when there's a lot of pivots from the no answers. And we do a good job of getting people out into the resource. We've facilitated the protection of over 56,000 acres. And a lot of the area that we work in is actually not in the corridor. And I think one thing that land trusts could really use assistance with is keeping the political pressure on other sources of funding, like the Florida Communities Trust grants. Those are really going to help the cities and counties that are in between spaces in the corridor. That did not get any funding this year. And that's a real kind of detriment to some of the work that we do, because if we are fully so focused on the corridor and aren't considering some of these in-between spaces, I think it could be difficult to get that buy-in in the middle of the state sometimes, or in some of the more rural agricultural areas that maybe are just like, that's not me, and it's not resonating with them. This messaging is not resonating with them. So just not forgetting the other areas as well, because even if they're not officially part of the corridor, they are still the rivers, the streams, the recharge areas that are connected to it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, you mentioned Florida Cities. What was that fund that got
Florida
no money?
Communities Trust, FCT grants.
Florida Communities Trust?
Yes.
How much money are you used to getting?
It's like 21% of the Florida Forever budget, is that?
Well, no, dollars. How many millions a year are you used to seeing in that fund?
I mean, it's been funded at 10 million, which really isn't much. We've been used for a long time now of not having money in Florida Forever or in rural and family lands. So it used to be
that's changed.
Hundreds of millions, yeah. So
that's totally changed. So
it
if
has.
we've got money coming to those two programs,
Absolutely.
Are you good? I mean, there's lots of money that we've worked and lobbied to get pointed towards Florida Forever and rural and family lands, does that take care of your problem, or do we need to do something different?
No, because these types of properties don't qualify for that type of funding.
Okay.
It's a really different,
Sure.
it's more about local access to parks and
okay,
recreation
right.
related to communities, yeah.
Well, actually, no, that money, a big chunk of the money last year and this year is going to parks.
Right, but I'm saying like it's just a different type of funding from the Florida Forever. Like it wouldn't process
So
the same
specifically,
way.
could you tell me what you're asking for?
Can we maybe
Because we're getting Florida Forever
do
money.
this
we're
as
getting,
a,
Yes.
can we come and meet you? Can we
Yes.
Yeah,
come
maybe
and
we
meet
need
you?
to talk this
Because
through.
we're
because
running,
it's-
let's
Yes.
come
we
and
think,
meet
we
you.
think we're doing what you want.
Yeah.
but-
We'll come and meet you.
Okay.
Let's talk it through.
But I do have a question. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
I do have a question though, because there's an issue out there with you land trusts. Could anyone who's a land trust raise your hand, please? Anyone that's in a land trust. Do you all really get along together?
Yes,
No, I mean because there's theory that you don't,
we
and I think that
definitely
you do.
do.
Okay, I have heard theory that you do not get along. Here's my point: is like what y'all need is y'all need services to help get the job done. I mean, it takes forever to get this easement stuff together. What if you had services that you could rely on that would help you close more deals and get them done faster? Wouldn't that be a good thing? Yes?
We're actually quite
Good thing?
lithe compared to the state and the federal programs. We close pretty quickly. We're good at that. We just need money, which you're helping
I
us
don't even know
with.
who's talking right
Okay.
now. Maybe.
Well, we're
Voice of
gonna
God.
wrap our conversation.
Right.
Thank you, everyone. We will be around, so feel free to come and meet Dan or Arnie or myself if you have questions or want to talk about any other things. But I'm going to call to the stage now the lovely Mallory to close out our week. So thank you all so much.